Hi, Marilyn here with Cotton and Chocolate with Saturday Sampler. Second part of Mineral Matrix for February, month one. So now we're going to talk about the piecing. So of course we're on page one. You've done all your cutting, and so now we're ready to go. So the first thing that we're going to be doing is our flying geese, and you need to make 4 of them. So you need to gather your fabric 3 and 8, and 3 is the base, and it's that big 5.5-inch square that I have right here, and you need 4 of your color 8s, and they're the 3-inch squares. Okay, you also had 3¼ inch squares. You're not going to use those yet. So you're going to take those squares, and you're going to take your Quilter's Magic Wand, and on those squares, I took my magic wand, and it has a little line, and they come in variety of colors. I have, a light yellow one that has, whatever color works for you. They have a little line right in the middle, and I put that on the point, okay, from point to point, and that marks your 1/4 inch. And then I happen to have a Soline pencil that has a white pencil lead, or you can use a pencil as long as you can see that marking on each side. So I marked all 4 of my blocks so that I know where to sew. Now, conversely, you could make one line right down the middle, and then with your 1/4 inch foot sew on each side. For me, it's a little less accurate. It's a little bit harder, but whatever you want to do. So I've pre-marked all my blocks, and then I've taken 2 of those squares and I've put them on the base, and I've nudged them in about 1/8 of an inch on each side. And then I've pinned them, and I've already sewn them on the line, okay? And then I'm going to take my ruler, and my cutter, and just cut it right down the middle. And you can take a ruler and hold that if you'd like. I just kind of cut it because, I can do that. And then I'll unpin these. And then what you're going to do, now a lot of you have already done this technique before, but those of you that are new, you're going to press outward, okay? I'm going to take that little, you'll take all of them and press towards that triangle that you just sewed so that you have the pieces that look like this. And then the next thing you're going to do, let me get this out of the way, is you're going to take those other 2 squares that you have left over and again pin them about 1/8 of an inch in on that block with the lines going. You've already marked those this way, okay? So you can take and pin them right here, pin them in, and then you're going to sew right on that line, and then I'll show you what happens next. Let me just get that sewn. Bear with me for a second here. And then you can sew both of them at once, but I'm just going to sew one right now just so you can see what's going to happen. And then cut right down the middle, not on the lines that, of course, you sewn, but right down the middle to separate that. Take your pin out, and this is the cool part. You're going to press it open. I'll press both open. And then you would do the exact same thing. I would do it all at once typically, but I would sew the other one also at the same time. I'll set that one off to the side. So now you see your flying geese, okay? And I'd have the other 2, and I would have 4 of them, which is what you need for your block. Now, the thing is that they're too big. They're oversized, okay? So you need to cut them down to size. Let me get these pieces out of the way. And I use my wing clipper to cut them down to size. Or if you want to, you can just take a regular ruler and cut them down 2.5 by 4.5, 2.5 by 4.5, but you have to watch that you have that 1/4 inch right at your tip. I'm going to use my wing clipper, though, that's made just for this process. And the first thing that I do is I cut it with the V sticking up, and there's a little V right here. So you can see that V right here, and that goes in my V. And that's going to be my very first cut. Okay, and that's going to be at my 2.5. And so I just trim it down this way first. And it just has a little bit of a trim down. And then I usually do all of them, all 4 at once. I trim this one and this one. And then you just keep the ruler at the same point, turn it this way, and then it will be at the 4.5. But also it has a nice little X here at the top. And that's what also is a second checkpoint. That little X is right where that little point is right here. So I'll put that in the corner right here. And I will just trim off the excess here. And what's beautiful about it is that I have a perfectly cut flying geese, a goose, and a perfect 1/4 inch right there. And that's how I would do all 4 of them. I'll just set these off to the side. But that's for, if you can see in my piecing, they're on the outside of the block here, and we'll be using those in just a second, but I'll set them off to the side for a minute. Now the next thing we're going to be doing is half square triangles. So I'm going to have A triangles and B triangles. I've already made my B triangles, but you're going to be taking out your 3.25 inch squares, and you're going to be matching up 2 fabrics of your 7 1/8 for your A, and 2 fabrics of your 4s and your 8s for Bs. And they're going to yield 4 half square triangles. So you also need a little sticker that once you make them identifies what they are so you don't get confused. So what I do again is take the back of these, and I'm going to take again my magic wand and mark the back side from point to point. I've already done that. Mark it, and again I use my white one because I could see it easier. And then I sew a little bit to the inside of my line. Just give me a little bit extra wiggle room on these. I'm going to cut it right down the middle and open it up, and I have one that I've opened up. And then I'll show you how you cut it down. And this one, I'm going to use my next ruler. I'll set this one off to the side. And I have it sitting here somewhere. Oh, sorry, it's back here. And this is my block lock. So these are all oversized, and you need to cut them down to 2.5 inches. So the key here when I do these, and I do cut them down all at once, but I'll show you one, is I'm going to press on the A block towards the dark. Okay, and that means that my little valley, it's the lower side is on the light, and whatever lower side you had is where the block lock word is, and you have a little groove in this ruler. It's a little groove right here, and what that does is it locks right into that groove, right into that valley. So the block lock word has to be on the lower part, and there's a 2.5 right here. So there's the 2.5 here and the 2.5 here. So I'm going to have it in a little bit. So that's going to be my first cut. So I'll cut it here and here. And when I'm doing all 4 of them, I'll do all 4 on that side first. I'll just, so I can just kind of assembly line cut it. Then I'll turn all 4 around, and I'll turn the block lock around, slide it down to the 2.5, and there's my 2.5 here and my 2.5 here. It slides and locks right in, so the block lock is still on the lower side in the emblems here, and it locks in again, and then it cuts here and here. Okay, so then the result is a perfect half square triangle, and I mark these with an A. So half square triangle A. Now, I've already done half square triangle B. What I want you to do with B, though, is I would like you to press to the light. Okay, So when you're cutting these, you're going to be locking in actually to the light side, okay? So not locking to the dark, because my lower side is the dark side. Going to lock in here at my 2.5 and cut them down. Okay, so whichever is your lower side, my seam allowance is going this way. And the reason, I'll show you why I did that in just a second when we piece these. Okay, now, let me get this out of the way. You've made half square triangle A's and half square triangle B's, and I have those marked. So the next thing that you're going to do is take your flying goose and an A and a B and match it together, sew them together with this. And I've already sewn one together here. Actually, and it goes this way. Okay, like this. And it gets sewn together. And the reason that I wanted you to see this is that the reason I put one to the dark and one to the light is that then they nest together perfectly when you're sewing them. So when you put this together, a dark and a light nests so that they sit together nicely when you sew them together. Otherwise, you have two darks sitting on top of each other and it's hard to match the seam. So then they nest together and then they sit together perfectly, and it's really easy to sew them together. So you're going to sew all four together, and then those will sit actually like this on the block. Okay, so we have them sitting here, and you're going to be sewing them together. Now the key with this is that you have to match these seams together, and when I'm matching these, I actually take my pin and I position pin them. So I'm going to see where my pin is right here, and I'm going to match it with this side right here. Okay, so that they match like that, straight across. I'm going to hold it perpendicular. I'm going to stick a pin on this side, and I'm going to stick a pin on the other side when I'm sewing it. So when I'm sewing, I'm going to sew across really slowly. When I get right to that part, I'm going to pull the pin right out, and my needle will go right into that spot. I can slowly go over these two pins because they're going in and out of the fabric. It won't break my needle, but I can go along there. So it's just called position pinning, but I can go right in and out where that pin is, and it leaves a hole, and my needle can go right in there, and I can match up perfectly with those 2 points right as they go into there. So that's where you're going to be sewing those two together. Okay, so that's that. And then the very last piece that you're going to be doing is an easy, simple log cabin. So you're going to be starting with, now, actually this is the last piece. This is the 1, 2, 3rd piece, log cabin with the not the fabric 4 squares, but the fabric 1, and then the fabric 9 and the fabric 2s. So you take the 2 little fabric 9s and sew them on with a smallness, pressing towards the small rectangles that you add. So I've had these 2 already added, and then you'll take your fabric 2, add this one on, sew it out, and then your last fabric 2, sew that one on and press it out, and then it results in your log cabin. So you'll make 4 of those also. Okay, so I'm going to set that one out to the side, and these are ending up into a 4.5 inch, and this is ending up in a 4.5 inch square. These are raw edge. So that's this piece here. I'll set these extras off to the side. Now your very last piece is going to you're using all 3 rulers that I talked about in the first video. this is the folded corner clipper, and this is the center block. So you're taking fabric 9 and your fabric 4 squares, and I started doing I actually sewed the very first one. So you have your square, you're going to lay it down, okay? So you're going to add opposite corners first. So I've already cut and sewn this one so you can see what it looks like. So I'm going to sew the opposite square. So you take your block, your 2.5 inch square, you're going to put it right directly on this. You're going to take your folded corner clipper. Now typically what you would do traditionally is take this, you would take and draw your line here. You'd sew on this line. You would fold, you would cut this off, and then you would fold this up, and that would be your corner. Well, instead of doing all that, I just take and put my ruler on here, and that's at 2.5 inches. And I'm lining up around the block, on the edge, all the way around. And I'm just cutting off that piece. And then what results in that is you can see this little blunt edge. And what that edge is my 1/4 inch. And so I will just quickly sew this down. And then I'm going to press out both sides. So you have to do the opposite sides first. And the reason is that the next 2 sides are going to interconnect. So now I can do the opposite sides here, and they have to be pressed out. I mean, I guess you could do this one, and then this one, and this one, and this one. I like to do both opposite sides. So here then I would take this one, and then take this here, and then cut it. And it does cut into that block a little bit, okay? And then sew it. Well, I wouldn't sew it. I'd actually cut each side first. And you could pin it if you want. So you could stick a little pin in there to hold it. And then I cut that side. And then you have, I'll just fold it up. And then that's what your block looks like, okay? So this is your center block here for your folded corner. This is one of your outside blocks. So you're only going to see a little bit of a piece here. I don't have them all made, obviously. This is your outside block with your inside triangle right here. And then this is going to go all the way around. So this just repeats. You could kind of start seeing the block here. And the next time I'll actually have the quilt with me. It's being quilted right now. So next time I'll have the block, but this one is folded out. So here's your corner here, but this repeats with another corner here, the same set here, corner, set, corner, and set. So this becomes a 9 patch here. So you see the 9 patch here. So then you just piece it across, across, and across. And then what I do is I would iron out, press those blocks out, press that block in, and then press those blocks out when you piece it. And then that way those will piece in easily. Okay, so there's your block. And in the end, I believe that all of these blocks should be finishing at 12 inches. And so you should be at 12.5 inches raw for your blocks. So that's it for this month. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.